Awesome. Okay. So, late as usual, my name is B. Holly, also known as Bobby Holly. This is kind of your semi-annual or biannual update on crazy stuff that I've been working on. This has been a bit of a joint effort so far between me and Cameron McCormack. We've had a lot of help from the Servo team, BZ, Rocky, Baron, Jet, JST, lots of other people, so if you helped out on this, thank you very much. So despite what you may have heard yesterday, this is still definitely a Skunkworks project. It's not really a secret, but we're not sure if it's going to work, and we're not really ready for a lot of media attention. So maybe just be discreet about it and don't tweet any more about it than you've tweeted already. I think David Burns kind of already did that one. So background in general. Years and years ago, Brendan used his considerable foresight to peer into the future and make a couple of very key observations. The first one is that device manufacturers are adding more cores to their devices much more quickly than they are improving the capabilities of those individual cores. This means that if this trend continues, serial software has a fundamental handicap against parallel software, and probably long-term parallel software is going to win. This is a problem for Gecko because Gecko is pretty fundamentally serial, despite some new improvements that we've just seen. And making it parallel in the general case would be very, very hard. And so Brendan proposed the following grand solution. Let's rewrite C++ from scratch, and then use the result to rewrite Gecko from scratch. Right? And this is totally crazy, because if you know anything about software, the oldest rule in software is that boiling the ocean once, let alone boiling the ocean twice, is basically impossible. However, the other great thing about software is that if you have an amazing team, you can do the impossible. And so Brendan went and hired a great team, and it turned out to be a really, really good team. So if you do a Google image search for PC Walton, and it's not just Patrick. I've recently had the opportunity to work with a lot of the people on the research team, both from the Rust and the Servo side. They're all really, really awesome. If you don't know them, this is a great opportunity to get to know them. If you're on the research, raise your hand. Yeah, so a lot of them are here. They're down the hall. They're really awesome, really friendly. They're a small team punching way above their weight, and they're getting really amazing results, especially in terms of performance wins over the competition like Gecko and Blink, right? Some of these performance wins are 40%, sometimes they're 4x, sometimes they're 40x, right? Really incredible stuff. I think it's very fair to ask how they're doing this. I don't think there's necessarily a clear answer, but in my view, this is what you get when you allow a team of very smart people to go back to the drawing board and kind of reinvent and redesign a web platform implementation without being constrained to the inertia of existing implementations. And Rust is the force multiplier, which basically allows that to be done by a relatively small team rather than a huge, huge, enormous team. So they built some really awesome stuff. I think the obvious question is, when can we ship it? So this is sort of where the gotcha of that whole boil the ocean thing comes in. Servo's great. It passes ACID 2, it renders Wikipedia, GitHub, Hacker News, Rock's blog, basically everything that matters. But unfortunately, the long tail of web compatibility is very, very long. And the team is very sure that they're going to get there, but it's pretty far out right now and a bit too far out to factor into our product planning decisions. And this is very unfortunate, certainly for Firefox, because Firefox needs concrete wins right now. And it's also unfortunate for Servo because they just have to put up with a lot of skepticism from other parts of the organization over whether the project is really viable or not. So we need a solution here. And back in August, Rock kind of proposed the following grand bargain, which was boil the ocean incrementally, right? Everybody wins. So the idea here is that we take some parts of Servo that offer the most powerful and unique wins over the competition, and then incrementally plug those pieces into Gecko. And the order of operations here is that we first prototype it, get it hooked up, validate that the performance characteristics are what we expect, and then, if it seems to be working, we can dump a bunch of engineers on it and get it feature complete and ready to ship. So the obvious question here is, where do we start? What component? And after some discussion, the pretty obvious answer turned out to be the style system. And it's a natural place to start for a bunch of reasons. Why is that fun? So the first thing is that the servo implementation of the style system is fast and very parallel. And the parallel part is cool because it seems to scale in performance with the number of cores, which is great. Another thing is that layout in the style system performance is already a large part of layout overhead. It's often quoted at 50%, so per Amdahl's law, it's a pretty juicy optimization target. Another thing about the style system in Servo is that it's relatively mature and relatively self-contained. These are both relatively. But compared to other things trying to plug them into Gecko, I think we've got a good shot at it. And the thing that I'm most excited about is that the style system is basically the interface between the parts of the engine and the web platform that pretty much have to be single-threaded versus the stuff that can be parallelizable and off the main thread, right? The style system links the DOM to layout, and so long-term, if this pans out and we want to put more servo into Gecko, we can effectively just extend the pipeline without having to make 2 new cuts. We only have to make 1 new cut. So that's pretty cool. So I've been bothering Patrick to get me some performance numbers. He did a couple quick ones while we were talking on IRC on Thursday, so not a lot, but here's the basic smoke testing that you do. I don't know if you can really see it, but basically on, he did GitHub and Wikipedia. On GitHub, Gecko is pretty much comparable to serial servo, but when you turn on the parallel multi-core aspect, it gets considerably faster in servo. And then on Wikipedia, serial servo is already much faster than Gecko, and then when you just crank up the parallelism, you get even more wins. So these look pretty good. The question is whether we'll actually be able to maintain those performance wins with all of the glue code and crazy hacks we have to do to put it together, and that is a question that we will answer very soon. So I'd like to thank everybody who's been helping. If you want to help, come let me know. Right now it's a bit of prototyping, but if this stuff pans out, there's going to be lots of very interesting work to do, and hopefully a lot more on the horizon. So expect to hear back from me in 6 months if all goes well. Otherwise, forget you heard about it. Thanks.